How highly am I going to rate today's movie? Not very. Hello, I'm Billy Bogues and welcome to another episode of How Disturbing, the show where we try to find the greatest, most disturbing film of all time. And today, we're looking at one that people have told me about and are constantly requesting me to have a look at. We're going to look at Possum. A quick rundown of how this channel works. First of all, we're going to do a detailed breakdown of Possum. We're going to investigate the plot in great detail. Next up, we're going to do a quick little review of Possum. I'm going to tell you what I thought about it and how good I thought it was as a film. And lastly, we're going to rate and rank Possum to see where it sits amongst its brethren of fantastic, disturbing cinema. And heads up, there are some ending spoilers in today's episode, so just be aware of that going in. The film opens up with our main man, Philip. He's got a big bag and for some reason he seems to be scared of it. We then see him on a train and he's watching a group of college kids a few seats down. As they get up to leave, Philip follows one of the boys and asks him about a drawing that he was doing.
What were you drawing?
Don't sweat it if you can't understand any of the dialogue in Possum. I can't either, but I'll do my best to explain it to you. He then follows the boys to the station and watches them depart. Philip arrives at a disgusting, neglected house that's obviously suffered through a fire, although it can't have been that obvious because I never picked up on that in the entire movie. Phil puts his big brown bag on the floor and goes upstairs. We then see him reading a book he made sometime in the past and promptly returns it to its home under the floorboards. Back downstairs again and the big brown bag has somehow migrated onto a table in a different room. Phil pulls something out of the bag and dumps it in a barrel before having a staring competition with a fox and returning inside. We're then read an excerpt from the book that we saw earlier.
What's inside? Man or spider? Little boy, don't lose your way. Possum wants to come and play.
Philip is staring at a closed door in the house before we're introduced to Morris. Morris asks Phil if he's going to go in. Phil says no. Morris then comments about what might be in the bag. It's revealed that Phil was a children's puppeteer who was scandalously fired, presumably for the creation that he has in the big brown bag, the contents of which he now intends to destroy. Here's a fun game. Every time I say big brown bag, have a drink. Something that we also learn is that the house is Phil's childhood home. He leaves the house and goes on a pointless walk and we're read more of the weird book thing.
See his nasty legs and tongue. When he wakens, watch him run.
Back at home, Morris offers Phil some roast fox for dinner, presumably the fox we saw earlier, and he shows Phil a puppet from his childhood, declaring that puppetry runs in the family.
My father taught me, Runs in the family.
You're not my father, Morris.
That's right, Morris, you're not even my real dad. Phil stares at the door again before seeing a news report, and it turns out the boy that Phil met earlier at the train station has seemingly been abducted. And suspiciously, it looks like the kid went missing right after Phil meets him. The next day, Phil walks the big brown bag again. He's taunted by some random guys, and he then arrives out the front of the school he went to when he was a child. After staring for a bit, Phil is appropriately asked to leave by a member of the staff. We then meet Possum, the puppet that Phil has been hiding in the big brown bag. That's fucking creepy. Phil then repeatedly tries to abandon Possum, but he just can't seem to bring himself to leave it anywhere. Possum the puppet is haunting him, and we see Phil awaken in bed with the puppet beside him. Phil then recounts a story to Morris from his childhood, describing how he and some boys tortured a dying fox, before Phil was repeatedly and disturbingly bullied by the same boys. Morris laughs maniacally for some reason.
Sly bugger. Playing with you.
Phil then stares at the door in the house again. Man, what's going on there? The next day, Phil is out trying to bring himself to destroy Possum, and for the first time, we meet the puppet in its true disgustingly weird glory. Frustrated that he can't abandon it, Phil proceeds to have a fist fight with a puppet. Phil then sinks Possum to the bottom of some gross weird canal thing, and he's seemingly done with it. Returning home, Phil sees the face of the missing boy on the newspaper, doubling down on the fact that it definitely was the kid he met at the train station. Morris taunts Phil, having discovered his secret weird book thing. He then informs Phil that there's rumours going around that Phil may be the one who abducted the boy.
I watch where you're treading, lad. People are talking.
Talking about what?
Do you read the papers?
Okay, we're out and about again, and Phil laments over a picture of his parents, and the film implies that they have something to do with the door in the house that Phil can't stop staring at. Returning home again, there is a lot of back and forth here. This is the movie. Phil is shocked to discover that Possum the puppet has somehow returned to him. Morris helps Phil burn Possum in an old drum. Finally, the guy's getting out of the house and being useful. Thanks, Morris. And Morris recounts an episode that happened in Phil's childhood where a boy was seemingly assaulted by a masked man. Phil breaks down, and Morris then realises that Phil was actually the boy in the story he was recounting.
I had no idea.
That night, Phil is taunted by Possum again, revealing that yeah, that puppet definitely wasn't destroyed and it certainly is back. Hooray. He's also visited by the police, although he hides in the dark and pretends not to be home. The next morning, Phil stares at the door again for a bit before catching another news report about the missing boy. And this time, it's describing him as a suspect. Later on, Morris tells Phil that the police came by while Phil wasn't home and that it's probably best that he lays low for a while.
Someone come here for you.
No.
Law, I reckon.
What do they want?
None of my business.
Phil visits his old school again, but this time he's requesting to see a member of staff who was aware of what happened to him when he was a child. I mean, the whole assault thing. But when Phil overhears the teachers talking and planning to call the police, Phil quickly flees. Phil laments over the pictures of his parents again for a while, and then for some reason, black rain pours down all over him. Yep. We're then privy to another montage of Phil trying to get rid of Possum and not being able to. Good God, this movie is so fucking boring. It's finally time. Time to go through the door. Alright, here we are, and it turns out that this room was Phil's parents' room, and they both died in the house fire. All that's left of them are their teeth, which are in jars for some reason, and then out of nowhere, a masked man attacks Phil. The masked man is Morris, of course, because he's the only other character in this movie, and it's revealed that not only was Morris responsible for the assaults on Phil in his childhood, but Morris is also the one who's abducted the missing child. He assaults Phil again, beating him with a belt, before Phil builds up the courage to snap Morris's neck. Phil then opens a locked box in the room and sets the abducted child free. The end. Thank fuck. I'm unhappy to say I did not enjoy Possum. I had little to no idea what was going on in the movie, and honestly, I had to look up the entire plot on Wikipedia to understand any of it. The story was incredibly loose and the plot points were just way too far apart. Here's what I will say though, the acting is superb, the casting is superb, and the characters are simple but believable. The makeup and practical effects are outstanding, and the puppet is suitably creepy, but fun fact, this film would actually make sense if the puppet wasn't even there. Possum the puppet represents Phil's trauma and how he just can't let go of it. But was that representation completely necessary? Well, I'm not convinced. Despite all this though, I can't help but feel like these characters could have been used in a better story, and that Possum would have made a far better short film. I mean, for the most part, this movie was painfully boring. But my biggest problem is that I could hardly understand what anybody was saying. I don't know if it is the way that it was shot or recorded, or if it's just their thick accents, but yeah, if I can't understand what the characters are saying, it makes it stupidly hard for me to follow the film.
Where'd you get that?
Well, from there.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, the time has come to figure out where Possum sits on a scale of fantastic, disturbing films. Not just really disturbing films, not just really great films, no, we're trying to find the happy medium between a fantastic movie and a really fucked up one. First of all, I'm going to give Possum a score out of 100 for just how good the film was, and, well, I'm going to give Possum a 21.5 out of 100. It was, in my opinion, just on the edge of being completely unwatchable, and I'm giving it a little bit of leeway because maybe it was my fault that I couldn't understand the thick accents. What did the general audience think of Possum though? Well, when I go to the most popular movie review sites and tabulate your opinion on Possum, it looks like you guys are actually giving it a 60.2 out of 100, you crazy motherfuckers. What is wrong with you? 60.2? You know what fantastic cinema in the history of movies and art has been rated less than a 60.2? Like heaps of shit. This is not a 60.2, but okay, that's what you think, whatever. We'll get an average between what I thought of the film and what you guys thought of the film, and our combined film rating for Possum out of 100 is 40.9. That's what we all think about it collectively. You and me. Together. You know? But most importantly, how disturbing is Possum? Well, I know that a lot of people think this movie's really fucked up, but I'm actually going to argue that it wasn't that fucked up. I don't know how disturbing Possum was. I mean, there were some dark themes, and the puppet was really, really creepy, but, like, that's about it. Most of it is just this dude walking in a forest, and then coming home, walking in a forest, coming home. So, out of 100 for how disturbing I thought Possum was, I'm going to give it a nice, neat 20. And, hate me if you want. Talk to me in the comments. I will have a conversation with you. Finally, we need to average out the combined rating of how good we thought the movie was with the rating of exactly how disturbing we thought the film was, and when we do that, we're left with an ultimate disturbing rating of 30.5 out of 100. And I still think that's generous. So when we bring in the grand spreadsheet, try and place this guy amongst all the other ones, well, it looks like Possum is the lowest rated film I've reviewed so far, and that makes total sense. I do want to apologise, guys. We've watched some absolute stinkers lately, and spoiler alert, there's some stinkers to come. But I promise I'm going to try and review some stuff that's a little bit more highbrow soon, just so we can enter some films into the top half of the spreadsheet. And having said that, that's the end of the episode. I'm Billy Bogues. Please flick me a like and subscribe. Please flick me a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. I'm totally new. And I'll catch you guys later.